On this episode of What's Going On with Shipping, the Russians have sank one of our drones. Hi, I'm your host, Sal Mercogliano. Welcome to today's episode. So, they didn't technically sink the drone, but they knocked it out of the sky, and it fell into the Black Sea, and therefore it has sunk to the bottom of the Black Sea. This video today is going to talk about the potential salvage of that drone and what the U.S. can do to reclaim the drone from the Black Sea. We'll, of course, give some background on what happened and some details and some past salvage operations that the Navy and the U.S. may be looking to as they get ready for this. And what does this mean for issues on the Black Sea, particularly as it comes to ocean shipping? If you're new to the channel, hey, take a moment, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you'll be alerted about new videos as they come out. All right, let's go ahead and jump into this story. So here's a story over in G-Captain. Russian jet collides with U.S. military drone over the Black Sea. Let's be clear, the Russians were playing with this drone, dumping fuel on it, doing several things to it before it fell. But anyway, here's the story. Let's go into some detail right here. So two Russian Su-27 jets carried out what the U.S. military described as a reckless intercept of the American spy drone before one of them collided with it at 7:03 a.m. It goes on here. Several times before the collision, the Russian fighters' jets dumped fuel on the MQ-9. This is a U.S. Air Force drone, a Reaper drone, possibly trying to blind or damage it. They flew in front of the unmanned drone in unsafe maneuvers, the military says. U.S. Air Force General James Hecker, who oversees the Air Force in the region, said this, quote, "Our MQ-9 aircraft was conducting routine operations in international airspace when it was intercepted and hit by a Russian aircraft, resulting in a crash and complete loss of the MQ-9. In fact, this unsafe and unprofessional act by the Russians nearly caused both aircraft to crash." Now, the U.S. have been flying drones, UAVs, over the Black Sea since the start of the Ukraine conflict. There is some question raised whether data from the drones are being linked to the Ukrainians to use against the Russians. This is one of the reasons why the Russians have an issue with it. I'm not saying whether that's right or wrong. I'm just saying that is the issue that's going on here. John Kirby, the White House National Security Council spokesman, said, "We've been flying over that airspace consistently now for a year, and we're going to continue to do it. We don't need to have some sort of check-in with the Russians before we fly in international space. There's no requirement to do that, nor would we do it." Well, regardless, the Russians obviously have an issue with this drone. This is a story over at USNI News, which talks about this a little bit more, in which I am actually quoted in this story. Again, this is the Russian Su-27 flanker, very standard fighter for the Russians over the Black Sea. They did that jet dump on it. In it, they talk about some information from the Navy. A Navy spokesman did not have any additional information if there were plans to recover the downed Reaper. In 2018, the Navy assisted with the recovery of an RQ-4 Global Hawk. It was a much bigger version of this drone, off the coast of Spain with fleet oiler USNS Arctic. It goes on here. However, shortly after the invasion of Ukraine by Russian forces, the government of Turkey closed off the Bosphorus and Dardanelles, the Turkish Straits, to warships from any country. They basically implemented what's known as the Montreux Convention of 1936. Whether or not they border the Black Sea, raising questions of a Navy salvage ship would be permitted to recover the aircraft. My quote to USNI was this: "What I assume they'll do is charter something and take it to the Black Sea, or charter something in the Black Sea. As long as it's non-military, they don't seem to have any issue." So let me go into this and talk about what I think will happen here. So I don't think the Navy needs to recover this drone. However, they probably don't want the Russians to recover it. So therefore, they're going to try to grab this before it does. So there's a couple of issues underlying the surface here. Number one is this. Literally, this falls coincidentally with a renewal, a 60-day renewal and extension of the Ukrainian grain deal. It was about to expire this week. They met in Geneva, the UN, Turkey, Russia, and Ukraine, and they hashed out a 60-day extension of the deal, which is very important. Again, getting Ukrainian grain out is absolutely essential to maintain stability in the world food market. And so it was a good deal that this was renewed. It says here the UN chief on Monday confirmed the UN would do everything possible to preserve the integrity of the Black Sea Grain Initiative. The deal agreed between Ukraine and Russia last July that is due to expire in just a few days, and Russia announced that it would agree to the extension. Understand, if this extension did not happen, you have the potential then for ships coming out of Russia to be targeted by Ukraine. There would be no reason not for Ukraine to do that. Russia is exporting through the Sea of Azov vessels and cargo out from the interior of Russia. One of the reasons Russia seized the northern part of the Black Sea and the region in question is this area right here. This is the Sea of Azov, and this region from the Crimean Peninsula up to Mariupol was held by Ukraine. Now it's not. And that means Russian vessels from the interior, from the Don River, the Rostov, the Caspian Sea, can now flow out through the Sea of Azov, through the Kerch Straits, out here into the Black Sea and head out through the Turkish Straits. You'll see here the difference in the amount of traffic coming out of the Gulf of Odessa versus out of the Kerch Straits, out of Russian ports. Much different. If the Ukrainian grain deal goes away, then Ukraine would have no reason not to think that they can hit Russian vessels on the Black Sea. So if the Navy is going to go and fish out this UAV from the ocean, what are they going to use? So in the past, where we've seen the U.S. Navy do these operations, they use several types of vessels. There is a class of salvage and rescue vessels in the U.S. Navy. Now, there's only 2 of them left. There's a whole new class being built down on the Gulf Coast of the United States, but they're not built yet. But that hasn't stopped the Navy from decommissioning the older ships. So we're actually in a period where we don't have a lot of salvage vessels left. There's only 2 left. And back in 1996, this ship, the USS Grasp, which is now USNS Grasp, U.S. Naval Ship Grasp, there's a civilian crew on board, was used to fish out the remnants of TWA Flight 800 off of the shores of Long Island. Typical salvage vessel, very akin to what we're seeing. Again, a whole new class, the Navajo class, is coming online, but they will not be entering service for a few more years yet. The other type of vessel that is used is a fleet tug. This is USNS Apache. She was used to fish out the remnants, the data recorder and box from the sunken El Faro off the coast of Cuba back in 2015. Apache is one of a class of Powhatan-class fleet tugs, and while these are designed for towing, they have a large working area on the stern here that they can mount rescue gear on. However, there's only 2 of these ships left. Again, we had 7, we're down to 2, and again, their replacement, which is the Navajo class, haven't come online yet. So we're not seeing anything available at this time. The ship that may be used is this one here. This is USNS Bruce HEEZEN. HEEZEN is one of 7 Pathfinder class survey vessels operated by the United States Navy's Military Sealift Command. Now, these vessels are used for oceanography and exploring out of the ocean. They will map the ocean bottom, measure salinity, ocean currents, and do exploration out beyond the confines of the U.S. coastal waters. Within U.S. coastal waters, we have NOAA, the NOAA Corps, the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration. They have their own fleet of vessels, and they do it. But outside international waters, outside U.S. waters, it is the ships of the Military Sealift Command. And right now, Bruce HEEZEN is in the Eastern Mediterranean. She just departed from Malta the other day on March 11th. So I don't know where she's at or what she's doing. She's not squawking right now on her AIS. And one of the things we've seen is the Turks have allowed commercial vessels and even auxiliary vessels to go through the Turkish Straits. This is a vessel that, while it's part of the U.S. Navy, is not armed. So it's not a warship. And the Turks may allow Bruce HEEZEN, one of the Pathfinder class, to go through the Straits and be used. This vessel is well equipped to do what needs to be done to retrieve it. It has underwater research vehicles and vessels. It has ROVs. It has a crane. It can do a lot of the salvage work that is necessary. The other option is for the U.S. to charter a vessel from Bulgaria, Turkey, Romania, a friendly NATO country, and then put on the back deck of that vessel, a workboat type vessel, the material they need to do it. They've done this before where they've used a non-U.S. vessel to go in and do it. It's a matter of time and whether or not the U.S. Navy and the U.S. government want to go fish out the Reaper drone out from the bottom. Again, I think they're going to be concerned that the Russians will go out and try to grab it and not want it to fall into their hands. So these are the options that I think are available for the U.S. So I'll be keeping an eye on see whether or not Bruce HEEZEN heads for the Turkish Straits to go through, or if we see a friendly NATO vessel being chartered. It could be a military vessel, it could be a commercial vessel. All you really need is the deck space and crane capacity to be able to get down into the Black Sea to pull it back up. I don't know where the drone went down over the Black Sea, but the paths I've seen of these drones have been right through the center part of the Black Sea, which is the deepest part of the Black Sea. So they would need a vessel of some good capabilities to be able to go in there and get it. But this is fairly typical whenever a aircraft or drone is launched for the Military Sea Lift Command, the U.S. Navy, to be involved in the salvage of it. So hope that answered some questions you may have had about what goes next with this drone. What happens between the U.S. and the Russians, no idea. This is just, again, another escalation of tension between the two. It's not clear whether or not a drone is considered sovereign territory, targets, who knows. With this, we've seen this debate a lot. We've seen the Chinese grab our underwater drones. Now we've seen the Russians knock down our drones. The Iranians have grabbed our drones. This is a whole new element in warfare that we just haven't seen before in statesmanship. So we'll see what happens. Hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, take a moment, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you'll be alerted about new videos as they come out. Leave a comment, give it a thumbs up, share it across social media. And if you can, support the page. How do you do that? Well, you can hit the super thanks button down below where you can give directly to the page, or head on over to Patreon. You'll see a link at the very end of the video or down in the show notes, and you can become a monthly or yearly subscriber. Until our next video, this is Sal, signing off. Stay clear of the Black Sea airspace.